Good morning and happy hump day to everybody. Happy Wednesday as we are at the final week of May before we get into the hot summer months of June. It is Onward Richardson, Alex Dunlap holding it down in the great state of Texas. How you doing this morning, Alex?
I'm doing great, and you've been away from Texas too long to realize it already is hot. It already
I
is
mean,
hot.
but I'm talking like 100 plus. Though. I'm talking about that 105. What? How many straight days were we over 100 last year?
Once it went over 100 straight days, I quit counting. I just said we live in absolute hell. It was the first time last because I have like many of us, unfortunately in a lot of cases, but fortunately for me, man, I have a real cool neighbor who happened to move in from California over the course of the COVID, and he he I was telling him, man, like that last summer, that was the worst that I can ever remember in my life. It's like you just moved here, you think it's like that it's not like that every year, man. So
Yeah.
hopefully hopefully we don't get that again. But of course you're in Destin right now. I saw the photo of you yesterday on Feinbaum's show.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
fine, Bob.
dude,
Yeah.
was he having his show right out on the beach?
Yeah, it's like the Hilton Sandestin, and there's like a boardwalkish kind of thing on the hotel. So just right there. So it wasn't on the beach per se, but it was just right next to the beach. Though that's usually his setup every year.
Have you gotten in the ocean yet?
I'm doing it today. Today I will. Today it's beautiful water out here,
I was
Alex.
gonna
Like
say, dude, I look behind you.
it's
I'm like, man, I
beautiful.
hope Bomb Wars out there
Oh,
touching sand, man. Like,
oh man,
yeah,
again, you know how I feel about Galveston, right? And so
yeah.
it's like when you go to South Padre, you're like, oh, this is how a beach is supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be as well. So yeah, I'm gonna have a little bit more time. I'm gonna have Chris Delcani will speak to some of us today, this afternoon, right around somewhere around like maybe the 3-ish hour or so. Alex, I went down there and checked. There really wasn't a whole lot of media availability for stuff today. Just got people you could maybe grab in and out of halls or things to that effect. But for the most part, it's going to start to die down. And Thursday will be the very last day of it. Usually it extends until Friday. So when I booked my stuff, I booked it to actually be here on Friday, but they're going to wrap up on Thursday. And I'm not going to spend those change fees on Southwest just to get home, another 3 hours earlier. So I'll be here on Friday morning as well.
Okay, so you'll get a little extra free time there. Maybe get a chance to wet a hook. Who knows? Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if Bomb Wars up for
Why
that.
not? Why not?
So we have a bunch to get to. Of course, he's at the
Yeah.
spring meetings. We have the topic of the walk-ons that you were able to talk about yesterday,
Yeah.
with a few people around there. Get some quotes about that as far as the roster limits. Also, some off-podium stuff from Sark regarding the new transfers, really, but it
Mhm.
parlays into topics about the nose tackle position,
Mhm.
where he sees Bill Norton, where he sees Jermaine Lole, how they line up, his core philosophies there, and then Javion Cole. He had
Yeah.
comments on him. I also had some stuff yesterday on Orange Bloods about it looks like it looks like some of these guys are getting together for some kind of leadership group. We'll maybe get to talk about that stuff. But where do you want to start, man? Is it
Oh,
is it with,
I want to start one thing. I want to start one place, Alex, for some clarification. I asked a question for you yesterday. When I went to talk to the commissioner. He does kind of a. By the way, the cool part, Alex, is that every day Commissioner Sankey talks for like 30 minutes in front of the media to recap the meetings itself. So it's not like he just talks one day and every single day he talks. And so I asked him, I said, hey, just for some clarification, when it comes to this player kind of injury report thing, right? I was like, is this just an SEC kind of thing, SEC conference rule thing, or is this going to be included? Will you do this when they face non-conference opponents? And he did say this will be an SEC only thing.
I told you.
Correct. You were right. So you were correct.
It's just as much as you say that everybody's gonna be like I agree. Everybody's gonna be like the SEC and stuff. Like everyone's gonna copy him and stuff. But
yes,
I just didn't think that they would want to give like SEC is pretty incestuous, man. I didn't think that they would want to give other non-SEC teams any kind of competitive advantage.
So for clarity, Alex, you were correct in your so, but I did, I'm not that person that's just going to say no and then not actually check into it. I said no, but I did check into it, and so it would be just for conference games. And now he did say, like, look, he feels like other conferences should do it. And obviously, there's a list of reasons why it benefits other conferences. And yes, of course, Alex, they're going to probably everyone will mimic the SEC when it's all said and done, right? SEC will do it, everyone else will do it. It'll just become the way of life. But I wanted to make sure that's just the one thing I wanted to get out there for the clarity part. The interesting topic, though, Alex, it has been.
Hey, before we get into that, can I give you another suggestion? Just in case. Just in case your brain freezes up in front of Sankey and you might want something, can you just if you get a chance to put a bug in his ear about an SEC media policy, if the SEC's thought about that, about just normalizing and what's the best way to put it? Not normalizing, but what's the word where you make something the same for everybody?
Communism? No, I don't know.
I don't want none of that. No, not compartmentalizing.
Whatever the word is, there's a word.
Yeah. Just like making it like making a template for everybody as far as the media. I'd be interested to hear if that's something that they've even tossed around. Very self-serving.
You mean like to like open up practices?
Yeah. It's like during fall camp, you need 15-minute practice windows every single day, or some stuff like that, or you get everybody gets a quarterback once a week.
Maximize the exposure of the. I think if I said to maximize the exposure. For your member teams within the conference, would you ever consider having some sort of standard policies?
Especially since the NFL is such a key part of what they do, right? Because it's obvious they're doing a bunch of stuff like the NFL does. So it's a very self-serving question, but I think it would be great for college football if there was a media policy like there is for the NFL, because in the NFL, nobody's ever having to you've been on an NFL beat, man. Mm-hmm. It's like you're dying for content during the week. It's like every day you're up to your ears about stuff. You know what I mean? And you have the information to put out there. It's better for the fans. It's clearly better for the reporters to not have to think like, geez, what am I going to write about today? What do I want to talk about today? It's like every day you're just getting fed up the red meat. You can put out to the people, and if the people want it, there should be something in place for the league to.
Alex, I go back to, would they open up training camp practice to fans? I mean, like for weeks, you could just sit there, and go out there and sit out there.
Credential.
You just go out there and sit for 2 or 3 hours, and then then fans sign autographs and everything like that. So it's just, college is, it is such a relaxed atmosphere, Alex. I think I might be able to get that question.
Perfect. All right. Thanks to everybody in the chat for being here. We've crept up over 100 of you as you continue to pile in, man. I'm sure we'll get to, quadruple or quintuple that by the end, and we'll make sure and thank you guys as you come in. But please remember to like the show, subscribe to the channel. We certainly appreciate that. All right, so we got a bunch of topics from yesterday on War. Do you want to start out with the walk-on stuff?
Yeah, I want to start off with that because it doesn't. I'll be honest with you, Alex. On the surface, typically we just don't talk about walk-ons, right? Like typically the conversation of walk-ons usually happens where in August there's that video of some walk-on who gets a scholarship, right? And then it's
Michael Taff, you're on scholarship.
Yeah, he's like, oh my God, it's like he's all emotional and everything like that. And it's usually about the time, and eventually maybe somebody, plays. But it's interesting now because, Alice, as they start talking about the potential of reducing reducing some sort of numbers, like because the topic this week is, basically, current, football teams can have over 120 players, right? They cap at 85 scholarships, but essentially the scholarship limits being removed because the NCAA versus the House case settlement, right? And so there are going to be like new roster limits introduced to reduce costs. And the one thing that they're looking at is that they're basically going to have rosters of basically 85, and that's it. 85 players, and that's it. That eliminates walk-ons. What is that? That eliminates 20 walk-ons or for a program, or 30 walk-ons for a program. Like, gone, just gone. And it's one of these things that you never miss something, Alex, until it is gone. Like, that's just kind of usually how the way of life is going. And one of the things that these coaches are really trying to wrap their heads around is, what does my world look like? The world that I was brought up in, if I don't have these walk-ons. And to be clear, Alex, and you know this, at Texas, they don't crap on their walk-ons. Those guys get the same privileges as the players do. They still get to eat the same meals, nice locker rooms, like all those things. Like, so they treat their walk-ons really well. It's the thing is, Alex, from a practice perspective, what do we do? From an implementary perspective, like, what do we do? To your point, like, you brought it up yesterday, Alex, you can't sign guys off the street like you can in the NFL during the week. So if the quarterback gets injured, you're kind of screwed. Like, they're really trying to wrap their heads around like a world without walk-ons. And it's crazy to say, but that's a world in reality that they're looking at.
The first thing, how I love football practice. I love football practice, and people think it's so weird. But I'm like, man, I grew up going, like, I had so much family, like cousins and stuff that played football, and uncles that were coaches and helicopter dads and stuff like that were I had 2 working parents, and I had so much family that was coaches all around me that would take care of me after school. And even if say your aunt, coaches like the girls softball team, it's like that coach, like, I don't know why it is, but that coach always ends up, like, during football season, like, she's at football practice too, right? So, just growing up at these football practices, the first thing that I just think about is, how do you run a practice without the walk-ons?
Yeah, I mean, can you explain that to Alex, for those who never really seen a college football practice? Because I don't think people may understand so people think, okay, walk-ons, these guys are just standing around like half the damn time. Like, can you explain like their importance within a
yeah. So I mean, look, so one of the key things how you could tell a guy's gonna redshirt, right, is if he's wearing like the same kind of clothes as the walk-ons, right? Like the stuff where that they're on scout team. And that's the stuff where I forget what they put like a green thing over their helmet. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is.
Or sometimes like mesh jersey,
like just the mesh green, black stuff or whatever it is. But they're set up for scout team, right? And so there's only so much. Like at Texas, Sark prides himself on doing a lot of what they call good on good. Okay, but that's what that is that's like your ones versus your ones, your twos versus your twos, maybe your ones versus your twos versus your ones and stuff like that. But a lot of the time during practice, especially once you get into the season where health is at a total premium, a lot more so than it is in spring football, where you're really trying to just so in spring football practices are a little bit different, right? Because in spring football and early in fall camp, not that Anwar, very clearly that the last 2.5 weeks of fall camp, everything changes. But it's spring football, beginning of fall camp. It's execution. It's pad level. It's form tackling. It is. It's about the technical form of things and the execution of actual football, moves, right, from like on an actual football field, and so. You're not gonna, whenever you're getting ready for the week and your team just got beat up playing Michigan, and now you got to go play OU and stuff like that, you're not gonna do good on good during practice. You got to give these guys some time, give these guys some time. And so you have to have another team. You have to have them run scout team. there has to be a team that gives the starting offense a good look. They've seen the movie like Rudy, right? Like, you know what it's like. Like it's the same thing back then at Notre Dame. They get mad at like players get mad at other players for saying like, oh, he's a scout team hero. He's going too hard. They're like, hey man, I'm just trying to give you the best look. So you're going to be good this week versus Florida or, you know, whatever. And like they play a critical role. And so if you just think about what it would be like, I think with 85 men, you would still be able to have a scout team that gives you a good look, but definitely you're going to be running scout team with all clear. I mean, by definition, with all scholarship players, right? And as you mentioned earlier, like if you do get one of these cluster injury situations where it's a group of injuries across one particular position group, where you're having to really kind of go a little bit deep as far as your depth, those aren't guys you're going to want to have getting beat up in practice all week. I mean, it feels disrespectful to say this of the scout team guys, but you're real, you know, you could be called, if somebody wanted to call you a derogatory term, they could say that you're kind of like a human blocking dummy. You know what I mean? Like that's a rude thing to say. It's a person, and they're out there trying, and they're part of the team and stuff. But you're out there kind of being your body's being used as a simulation of what you're going to get to see on the other football team. You know, you're not being coached. So, or if you are being coached, it's like a secondary function of what's happening. So, it's just different. You wonder how they're going to run practices.
Yeah. I mean, you do, and to your point, I mean, it's hilarious. And I'm gonna bring up this guy's name again, right? Kai Woods, right? I mean, like literally that happened this year.
I don't know. You're such the Kai Woods fan.
I don't know how I fell into this.
Do you?
But he's a walk-on. He was a walk-on, though, right? But he was a walk-on that was able to get.
Did he have other offers coming out? Do you even know?
I don't know, but typically, Alex, with the walk-ons, they have other offers. They don't have offers that they love. And so the walk-on thing gives them the opportunity to say, you know what? I've got good grades. I can get into UT. You know what? Why not? Like, I'll just go ahead and take that there. You got Kai Woods' rivals page up?
Yeah. Let's see. He had offers. He had 3 other offers: Tulane, Air Force, and Dartmouth.
Yeah, I mean,
where is Dartmouth?
Did you gotta ask someone smarter than me.
I don't even know.
It's going to be up north.
Oh yeah. Do you have a guess? I'll say it's. I'm
going to say Massachusetts.
I'll say it's in Virginia.
I'm going to say Massachusetts.
All right. I'll look it up real quick.
Let's see who's closest. Okay. It's definitely up north, right? We don't really have too many Harvards of the South down here.
It's in. Oh gosh, we were both wrong, but you're much more right. It's in New Hampshire. Hanover, New Hampshire.
I've been to Rhode Island one time, by the way. So that just for whatever that's worth. So, but imagine now, Alex, like you played. Obviously, you played high school ball. You've known guys throughout the years. And I know you talked about, of course, this is like, how do you run your practice? And so, first of all, there's a couple of things, but it really, as far as going to practice is concerned, I'll say the dream killer thing for later. Really what this boils down to, Alex, and they really are starting, they have to look at what NFL teams have done. And what they have to look at is, okay, with that 53, how do you run practice? You have your practice squatters, and they even had someone from the NFL in yesterday talking to the SEC coaches, basically talking to them about like safety measures and how to kind of run practices. But it was all part of like, all right,
somebody who came and talked to the coaches yesterday when they went in that room Sark was talking about.
It was like one of the medical guys on like maybe how to effectively and safely run practices. But that's going to be the thing that if this comes to it, like they're going to have to say, all right, well, the NFL, first of all, the NFL, Alex, and this, and people may not, they don't really hit during the week.
Not anymore. They used to a little bit, but they don't anymore. And by the end of the season, even in the bad old days when it was like nobody, it's like guy gets a terrible concussion, he's seeing stars and stuff like that. The coach says, rub some dirt on your helmet and get back in. It's like they didn't care at all about player safety back then. But even then, just as out of the spirit of maintaining a competitive advantage and not being stupid coaches.
Correct.
By the end of the season, you're just not going to hit. It's like these guys are burger by the end of the year, man. Like, so yeah, like it wasn't by function of being, by being hand padding, super sensitive kinds of dudes. If it would have guaranteed them an extra 3 points that week, they would have fire these guys off of catapults right into the side of a mountain. Yeah. It's like they're cannon fodder to them. Like they truly don't care. It was just by the end of the season, for competitive reasons, you just couldn't play these guys during the week. Now it's just man. Now, like, what is it? They got to stay up. I think even during the week in practice, they got to stay up. No taking deuce to the ground, right? And then there's also maybe during training camp, for every day you could take deuce to the ground, you got to stay it for 2 days or something like this. Yeah. There's the they can't really do 2 days anymore.
Oh God.
There's only you can be on the practice twice. You can be on the practice field twice a day, but one needs to be basically a walkthrough. So
you can't hit. And what's interesting, and what these coaches have to now come to grips with, Alex, is that for as many programs, the season is going to be longer because you have the playoffs. So you're talking about, hey, less players with a longer season. Like I think the number may be like, I think it could be like 17 games. I think if you make it all the way there, depending on what you play, but you're going to have your 12 plus the championship game, conference championship game. Then that's 13. Then there's the playoff weeks that's going to occur. So now you're talking about more practices, that you're going to have more games in December and January, and you're talking about less bodies. The mind of a coach is so much in, like, I've got everything figured out and I control every aspect of it. And now looking at it like, oh my God, like, how do I deal with that? That's another aspect, Alex, is a longer season in college football and them figuring out, and we have less bodies. Like, how do you navigate that?
At least you're hoping it's a longer season, right? Yeah. Everybody's hoping for that. Yeah. And as you're saying it, Anwar, I thought about the word I couldn't think about. I was saying normalized for the media policy, standardized. Standardized media policy. Yeah. Or a standardized access schedule for SEC. I just think it makes way too much sense, and I think it makes a lot of sense for me to tell you about Texas Beef Traders. Look. I went into Texas Beef Traders right there in the heart of Lakeway on Friday with my son Merritt, and whenever we went in there, he's always so happy to see Darren. He's always so happy to see Shay and Dan and these guys. And guess what they did? They cooked up some. They cooked us up some filet tips with this awesome truffle oil on top, and also this Japanese style bone-in ribeye that was amazing. They gave us all the tips about how we could do it at home, and it wasn't just because they're an advertiser here that they're doing this for me. I walked in there amongst all kinds of other people. You don't understand the experience that you get at Texas Beef Traders. It is an experience to go in there. They're going to hook you up with food. They're going to give you beers. They're going to give you wines. They're going to want to talk to you about the different cuts of meat. And as I'm there talking with people in this awesome community there, Texas Beef Traders, right off of Loman's Crossing and Lakeway, I'm thinking to myself, and we're saying to each other, how is it that this meat's cheaper than HEB? How is this even possible? I can get 2 awesome strip steaks here for $20. How is it possible that the ground beef is $4? That's before I even use my Orange Bloods discount. 10% off at Texas Beef Traders. Look, and if you can't get out to Lakeway, you can't experience the awesome environment that they have at Texas Beef Traders. Just call up there. If you live anywhere in the Austin area, heck, they delivered to one of our listeners out in Temple a few weeks ago. Just call up there. Tell them what you want. Tell them you heard about it from Alex and Anwar over on the Old Fashioned Show. They'll give you 10% off. And look, they'll just bring it to you. Texas Beef Traders, TexasBeefTraders.com. Go check them out. Anwar, you want to pop
back? And by the way, boy, Alex, did you keep up with some of that stuff? Some of those storms that are out there in that Dallas area?
Oh gosh, man. Well, I have family. Up where my wife's family is all there in Dallas, and God, they had to shelter in place. They had to do stuff where you go in the middle of the house and like all hide together and stuff. Just crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
so thoughts and prayers out to everybody up there for sure.
everybody for sure. And so if you are in that DFW area right now, and you're just saying to yourself, man, it's time for a change. Eric Sells Homes, DFW. He's the man that's got you covered. He will take care of you. If you're looking to buy a home, you're looking for sell a home. It is summertime. Everybody's out there. They're moving and going. People try to decide what we're going to do. People are moving out of the state, moving into the state, all kinds of stuff. Eric Sells Homes, DFW, El Presidente himself. He's got you covered. Make sure you check him out. Friend of the show, friend of the family. Last time, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Come on back in, Alex. Okay, so Alex, we got that part covered. I don't know if there's much meat left on the bone as far as the walk-ons are concerned. But that there's probably a little bit more, but we can save it for another day. There is the other thing that happened yesterday too, Alex, when Sark was talking about the nose position and really kind of the transfer portal guys. He I guess he was waiting for everything to be finalized, and everything was kind of finalized, so he was able to finally discuss all of those guys, and he really kind of broke down his thoughts on, Bill Norton, Jermaine Lilly as well. He also talked about Javion Cole. And then he also talked about which players might be plus players at that particular nose position. He did mention a guy like Aaron Bryan, saying that he played extremely well this year. He also talked about Alfred maybe having some versatility to play down there. First of all, I just would like to get your thoughts on what he said about the incoming guys before maybe we start talking about some of the incumbent guys, particularly at that nose position.
Yeah, look, with Norton, you knew that that's what he was going to play, right? And it was interesting what Sark said about how it's just so fun. It's so funny to me how these guys define their base defense and their sub package defenses, right? He's saying, well, when we're in. And everybody knows when we say nose. I think that everybody knows we're talking about a guy that plays either the zero technique or what's called the one shade, right? And the one technique, it's just like what you do when you think about the techniques. Think about zero being head up on a center, right? And then one being on the center's outside eye, going out towards the tackle, right? Two is head up on the guard. Three technique, one of the most important positions in all of football. That's the defensive tackle, right? That's on the outside eye of the guard. Basically, it's in between where the guard and the tackle is. But if you're aligned kind of more on the guard's outside eye, that's a 3. Whereas say you're aligned more on the tackle's inside eye, that's called a 4 eye, or like an inside 4 kind of thing. 4 technique is on the head up on the tackle, and then 5 technique is a traditional strong side defensive end type of thing, which is on the outside shoulder of the tackle, right? From there, there's 7, 8, 9, and those are a little bit weird about how those are numbered. But as far as the line's interior, that's how it goes, okay? He was saying we don't ever have anybody play a 0 unless we go to base, which was an interesting thing to say about the nose, because it's like whenever they go to that sort of it's just odd to me that they think of that sort of 3-4-ish look as their base. You know what I mean? That they don't ever really play. They like, because they're always in nickel. They're always in nickel. How often does Jahdae Barron come off the field whenever he's healthy? Or it's like, I mean, they're always in nickel. They have these they have various sub packages for very specific situations where they bring in a third linebacker instead of a nickel. And in those spots, I guess technically, and you can go back to Coach PK whenever he was coaching at Washington, talking about the buck linebacker is what he called it back then, as far as what we kind of consider a buck end, because it doesn't, feels more like Ethan Burke plays more of an end than he does a linebacker last year, right?
Yeah.
Feels like his system sort of why I can't think of words this way. What's this? Oh gosh, it's sort of evolved to being sort of more like that, to where that buck end is still a hybrid end linebacker spot, but they're a little bit more defensive endy these days. Now, could that be different with guys like Colin Simmons and Trey Moore and stuff coming in? I think so. I mean, those guys look more like linebackers than Justice Finkley or Ethan Burke or any of these dudes that they've been messing around with over there. Even the guys that are gone now, Jay Montab, Billy Walton, they look more like kind of ends than they did linebackers. But it's still the same. You know, he was saying what we already knew about Norton is like whether it's at the zero technique, which they don't even play much because they're I consider their base of what looks like a 4-3 nickel. That's what they play. And so we're talking about the one shade. And if we just look at what during the one shade, I watched Norton play in 3 games from the 2023 season. Or wait, no. 2 games, Oklahoma and Washington. And in those 2 games, he played at the one technique or the zero, or the zero or the one shade. So basically where he's aligned on a center somehow, whether head up on him or on his outside eye, 89% of the time. He plays nose. There's nothing else he plays. So we knew that was going to be the case coming in. Now with Lole, it's different. And whenever you're asking him about Lole, admittedly, this is watching 2 games, but the 2 games that I watched were one against an SEC opponent, Louisville versus Kentucky, and then versus a good team, Florida State, and that was in the ACC in the ACC championship game last year, and Florida State. By then, Jordan Travis was hurt by then, but they still have all kinds of good players. You're still going up against like the Trey Bensons and stuff. Yeah. They still had you know what I mean? Like they had I think Jaheim Bell, the tight end, was on that team, Johnny Wilson. So they had some good players. But in that game, Lole was awesome, but he didn't play as much nose. He played nose through the course of 2 games. 11% of the time he played the head up on the guard 5% of the time. He was at the 3 technique 74% of the time. He was on the tackle or outside of the tackle 9.6% of the time. So he played mainly 3 technique. Now, he did have a nice sack versus Florida State on a stunt coming from the one shade. So it showed that he has the ability. And what Sark mentioned, if you watch the game versus FSU, you can see his versatility, the way he can move around, stuff like that. And you can also see that he can get to the passer. And the first thing I thought of was that stunt where they have Louisville's got a really good player. Oh, gosh, Ashton Galati. He went to high school down in Miami. He goes there now. He's considered one of the top kind of edge linebackers in this class. It's really heavy for him. Almost we've talked about. We'll talk more and more about it coming into next year, but it's looking like this class is going to be awesome for edge players. And he's sort of one of the ones at the very top, super productive sack guy. And it's because of all the stunning and the twists and the stuff that they did in that defense, right? That Louisville defensive front is one that was really maddening to face. These guys are doing these games where you start out, like we said, in that you can start out on the kind of the outside eye, the backside eye of that center. And on that play, Lole goes all the way around the center, all the way around the guard, comes up on the outside of the guard on the other side for that sack, right? So, he's athletic in that way. They had the personnel to really screw opposing offenses up in that way. And with Lole, I said to myself, man, if you watch what Nansen did, who's now a co-coordinator at Texas, if you watch what he did at Arizona, they did a bunch of those stunts and twists in games. If they bring that stuff to Texas, Lole is really good at that. And we've seen him be able to be effective in that from the zero technique, the one shade. However, he did play mostly 3 technique there. So I think with Sark saying that he can play both, he can play both. And it's also the fact that if you have Alfred Collins there, Savea looks like he's a 3 technique. And if you look at what Savea was, and you said we'll talk about the incumbents later, but I feel like he's kind of just a half incumbent, right? Because we don't really know what he's done at Texas yet. But he was at 3 technique at Arizona during the same time that Norton was there. He was at 3 technique 70% of the time. So he was a guy that's played mostly 3 technique, hasn't played a ton of that, and I didn't see him line up a lick at the nose during fall camp. So where that leaves the rest of the incumbents, I'm not exactly sure, but I always viewed Lole as a guy who has the versatility. I never viewed Norton as one.
What did you? He also said so. So let's transition to the incumbents. He said he thought that Aaron Bryant showed some great growth in the spring. He said they saw some flashes from Sadir this spring. He said when he was capable to go, he was hard to block. As well. And then he mentioned
Was Sadir
Alfred.
Mitchell hurt? What do you mean when he's capable to go? I was like, what? Was it?
Why we get an injury report? Let me get an injury report, Alex. That's all we need.
Okay.
And then he said Alfred Collins has some versatility, and he said depending on the formation, he can kick it down there as well. Your thoughts on when he talked about Aaron Bryant, Samir Mitchell, and then the possibility of Alfred at the nose as well.
Well, if you can play Vernon Broughton at nose, you can play Alfred Collins at nose. Mm-hmm. Right? Coming into this season, coming into spring football, I was just like, dude, they're gonna have Collins play nose and Broughton play tackle. Because to me, it was like, who's the guy that stands up better against the run out of those two? Well, it's very clearly Collins, or it has been so far. If that's the case, and he's gonna be at the one shade, yeah, man. I want him as the guy that's gonna have to button it up and strap on the chin strap and take on this double team from this right guard and this center, right? Whereas a lot of times, look, some teams have a butt kicking right tackle. I can understand that. Maybe you think about, look, if you're facing Texas, it's going to be harder being the 3 technique versus Texas because you're going to have to face up against DJ Campbell and Cam Williams. It's like that's the guy that you want holding up best, right? But I would think that strategically, a lot of the time, man, a lot of teams are not as blessed as Texas. Anytime that the 3 techniques to the offense's left side, typically a lot of left tackles are really good gliders, and they can get their hands on you in pass pro, and they can out leverage you and stuff like that. They're not necessarily always butt kickers in the run game. It's to be a right guard, left guard, center. You could be like, and to be good and capable, you got to be a butt kicker in the run game. So, and you're going to get true doubles a lot more often than you will at the 3 tech. It's just how it goes. Both those positions are tough. Both of them have to be able to take on double teams. I would think you would want the guy right in the big center of everything to be the one that's better holding up against the run. So I always thought the Collins could do it, right? If we're talking about just Collins and Broughton, 2 guys who you think are good, but you certainly hope take steps forward, right? You can pick little things out about their games that you don't like. Mm-hmm. That's what I originally thought, but I didn't see it much during the windows of availability that we had during fall camp with Aaron Bryant and Sadir Mitchell. It's just interesting, man. Aaron Bryant last year only played 46 snaps, I think it was on Warren. Mm-hmm. 46 total snaps. He did not do it. So the games that Aaron Bryant played in last year, let's just see, because it was 46 snaps. I want to see if it was only in certain games where it was spaced out. Okay, so he played like 2 snaps versus Tech. He played 3 snaps versus K-State, 7 versus BYU, 6 versus U of H, 21 versus Baylor, 3 versus Wyoming, 4 versus Rice. So he was used sporadically as like a 3rd or 4th defensive tackle or 3rd or 4th nose throughout the course of the year. What is it? Just like kind of peppered in through games. Just a little bit. No, it wasn't like one of these dudes that played 46 snaps, but it's just because Texas ran up the score against whatever team, Baylor, and he got to play the whole, 4th quarter. It wasn't something like that. He actually got in for random snaps during regular games, and during that time, over the course of 46 snaps, he did not record a single statistic in my deep dig stuff. And that's not just the stuff that records tackles, assisted tackles and stuff. I'm even looking for little things like run stuffs or pressures or quarterback hits or hurries or anything. Nothing. He was a big nothing. Whereas if you look at Sadir Mitchell, now he only played 10 snaps in the regular season, but on those 10 snaps, he had oh gosh, I got to get back to my sheet here. On those 10 snaps, he had 2 solo tackles and 1 run stuff. So in those, like in the games where Sadir Mitchell played,
Mhm.
It wasn't much. It was 10 snaps. It's a middle school sample. In any other scenario, we can't even take anything from that, right? You're like 10 snaps, bro. Get out of here. It's like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
But if we're comparing it to a dude that played 46 snaps,
Mhm.
one guy did nothing. One guy had 2 solo tackles and a run stuff. So he was more productive on a per snap basis last year. He looks like the more explosive guy to me, but they did talk about how Aaron Bryant made a bunch of steps this spring. So clearly interested in that. Aaron Bryant only played nose last year. Sadir Mitchell's only going to play nose. So those guys we're talking about the nose position, yeah, man. You're looking at Broughton and Collins can probably be interchangeable at them, right? Behind them, I think you're probably looking next down now to is it going to be a Bill Norton, Aaron Bryant battle? Or do you think Norton's already the second guy? Ketch says that Norton's already the starter.
I mean, he's definitely highly regarded. That's for sure. I mean, Ketch may be correct in the Norton.
No, I don't think Ketch has heard that. I just think Ketch is assuming it.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's definitely too deep, right, Alex? I mean, we can at least say that, right? I mean, I think there's no fear
so
of
that means that Aaron Bryant's not even on the 2 deep yet.
I mean, again, him saying. And again, I don't know this, as we just kind of him saying that Aaron Bryant made strides and it can play, but him saying he made strides and can play doesn't necessarily mean that's the guy. Like
contributor.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who make strides, and then like we're really happy about that. But at the end of the day, like you can say Sadir Mitchell looked good at times, but where does that really mean when the bullets start flying? Bill Norton's a guy that has the experience, and I think he talked about that in Houston, about having some of that depth. But before we go too far down that one, Alex, it's Wednesday. We're almost in time for the weekend. It's time to go to Specs for the best prices on beer, wine, spirits. Alex's tequila. Specs has got everybody covered. This is
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
I'm at Specs way too often on work.
Sometimes you like to go where everybody knows your name. Alex, I got about like 10 more minutes. I think you had some other things that you wanted to, some topics that you wanted to get to. You got something where we can do in about 10 minutes?
Yeah, well, no, I'd like to ask you. So you got CDC. What do you like? What like how does that look? Do all the ADs get to go? Do all the ADs go up, or do you got a private thing with CDC? You kind of trying to grab him, or
I think he might just be in the lobby. So the ADs aren't necessarily podium guys. Let me look through my email. So this is something that Bianco sets up, and it looks like Big Schaefer will be available around noon, but CDC should be in the lobby around 3:00, and looks like it's just one of those things where Alex, he'll sit there, he'll kind of get in a nice leather chair, and the people gather around him and whole court. So what's happening? It's kind of like the owners' meetings where a lot of reporters are hanging out in the lobby. Because I'm Texas-based and Texas-centric, I don't necessarily need Calipari or I don't need some of these ADs. So I'll sit down with him and I'll ask him some things. I think for me, Alex, I think the thing he's my biggest topic for him, honestly, there'll be others. Even though it's not his call per se, like as far as these afternoon games in September, it is a talking point for the fan base. Like there is a talking point that, hey, it's 110, in these stadiums. So like, what can you do? You can't do anything from a TV standpoint, but what can you do in order to make sure like the fans are, okay, they're comfortable? Like, how do they survive it, in Texas? So it'll be something like, I won't pepper them on that because again, I understand, but when the kickoff time for that Colorado State thing was announced, people were on tilt on about that thing, and some people are like, get over it, and other people are like, it's hot as hell. Like, is there any other time we can do this outside of midday? So I definitely think I'll get to him, on that. And it'll be some other. I think Alex would also be a blend of like nationals will probably be there with some of the locals. So he'll get asked like NIL and things to that effect. So it'll be kind of a blend of things that are probably more of interest from a local perspective, and it'll be a national stuff as well.
Yo, are you gonna have we gotten any clarification about what? Because wasn't there the thing where they're going to put the indoor practice facility? They're saying that building that they were going to have to 86 like the Frank Irwin Center or what they have to give it the Frank Irwin Center treatment, with some kind of historical marker, and they can't do it. There was something.
No, I think they can do. They can do it. They can do it. It's going to be done. There's just people who have been protesting it and being upset about it.
Oh, okay.
They'll kind of let it be known during one of the town meetings that they'll do something special to honor the building.
Yeah, okay.
But it's like any people who hold on to it, and there is a historical reference to it, but change comes, man. Like change comes. That those things happen. So
yeah. Oh, that's I'm trying to think about anything like you want to ask an AD. I wonder from a national perspective what people would be asking of a guy like Del Conte. Is it whenever you just think about the halls and what's going on around there? Is it like we had talked about catching you and I yesterday? Y'all had said like, well, the biggest part of the discussion among these league meetings is going to be the NIL stuff and the portal stuff. And I was like, why? What's new with it? And you're like, well, the big lawsuit and all this stuff. And I was like, well, is that something that really gets discussed there? Has that been true? Has that really been the kind of topic?
People are talking about, because of the lawsuit for the Georgia quarterback who has sued Florida and saying like he didn't get served. So now people have been asked like, how do you safeguard yourself? Are you worried about future lawsuits, anything to that effect? And a lot of coaches have said no, of course, right? No, who's going to say like, hell, of course, I've lied to so many people. I'm worried. I can't sleep at night. No one's going to say it. But there are people who have asked, about that. They've asked about, how do you pull off a world where college players are getting paid, but they're not employees? Now, technically you can do that, right? You can 1099 everybody, right? And they're not they're employees. And that's basically the easiest way to do that. But NIL has been, a topic that's hidden here. Transfer portal, not as much, I would say. I don't think the portal has been something that anybody's really discussed. No one's complaining about it at this moment. I think most people have talked about just, whether it's Sark or where it's Kiffin, just the need to adjust to the modern times. And Sark has been clear, like, it doesn't do you any good to complain about it. You just have to adjust to it and learn how to work it. And so that's what kind of, Sark is at. So, we're winding down on it, but I think he'll be asked about some of the, the lawsuits. I think he'll be asked about this, the limits as far as like scholarships or, as far as player limits are concerned, and then kind of the ramifications with it. The one thing about Chris Del Conte, Alex, he knows how to hold court.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man.
He knows
no one's gonna leave there thinking that dude's not a cool dude, man.
Oh yeah, he's gonna sit there in a leather chair. Everyone's gather around. Yeah. Everyone's gonna ask him questions, and he's gonna be gregarious and funny and everything like that. Like this is literally the softball for him because he's gonna love it.
Yeah, man. Texas fans should be glad to have that dude. Like that dude's an AD who like if I'm pissed about something that happened at practice, like I could text him and he'll get back to me and say, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to look into it. There's no other AD in the country that would put up with this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it's funny, Alex, but sometimes people ask me on OB and they'll say, well, why don't you ask Del Conte this? And why don't you ask him this? And I'm like, why don't you do that? Like this
you can do it.
I was like, you can ask him, tweet him, and he'll respond to you. Like, I don't have to do it. You can whatever's important to you, you can do.
Yeah, he'll get it's absolutely crazy, but he will get back to you. That's always cool to know. We're gonna get back to you tomorrow at some point. Where I don't know if we'll do buy or sell. We'll have a whole new group of stories. Maybe we'll get Jason on, but today is just jam packed show, all kinds of stuff. I know you're up against it though. So what do you want to say to the people before you get out of here?
Man, enjoy your Wednesday, man. I enjoy being away, but Alex, after about day 3 or so, you're like, all right, I'm ready to go back home. And so so I'm kind of at that point, like, all right, let's get this over with. But you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy Catherine. I saw it was in the chat. I saw the Green Lantern was in there, and I saw Baron Sorrell was in there as well. So you guys enjoy it. Remember, I was saying live each day like it was your last, because one day it will be. I got to get to some SEC stuff, and eventually I'm gonna get to the beach. So you guys enjoy your Wednesday.
All right, man. All right, make sure and take a dip in the beach for old Alex, man. That's gosh, I wish I was out there. All right, now. Make sure to like the show. Subscribe to the channel, please. LFG is saying in the chat that we're at like number 30, which is obscene considering there are over 300 people watching. So please like the show, subscribe to the channel. We would certainly appreciate that. We don't want Catch to dock our pay for lack of likes. Okay, like the show, subscribe to the channel, and you can email me, alex@rosterwatch.com. You can find Anwar on Twitter at Anwar Richardson. You can find me at Alex Dunlap NFL. You can follow us there. If you have any questions, send us questions over there, or you can email me. So go out today, go do something big, man. Later on, we'll have Ketchum, we'll have Ketchum, we'll have Chad, we'll have the recruiting hour, big day here on the channel. We will see